Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar launching the Devon Great Crested Newt project. Now, today really is exciting as we're kicking off our county-wide Great Crested Newt project. I'm Jack from Devon Biodiversity Records Centre, and I'll be your presenter for this evening. And just quickly to introduce myself, my day-to-day role involves lots of wildlife surveying and getting involved with individuals and communities involved in community science projects throughout Devon. Now, you may have read the Eventbrite information or even ventured onto our website, but I'm aware that there's not really been too much information regarding the project so far. Therefore, the idea for this evening is to give you a bit of a background and an overview to the project, and just to let you know the various ways in which you can get involved. So I'm conscious that we have people from all different backgrounds attending, so the ecology content covered will be very broad. However, the in-person sessions we're sort of planning to do in the future, which I'll mention later on, they will go into kind of the more finer details of Great Crested Newt ecology. But now to start off, I thought I'd just give you a quick overview of the project partners. So Devon Biodiversity Records Centre is one of a national network of local environmental record centres in the UK. And we've been providing information on wildlife for more than 20 years. Now, we were originally set up to act as a central reference point for anyone who wants to know about wildlife within Devon. And therefore, we collect, collate and manage a database of around 8.5 million records. And this is being continually updated with approximately 2,000 to 5,000 records being added every month. Now, these records are derived from a variety of sources, and that includes our own fieldwork, organisations such as the Wildlife Trust, local recording groups, and individual members of the public. So our data is used to inform planning, but also to support work of our partner organisations such as Devon County Council. And we do this by providing them with data services and the most up-to-date records on wildlife that we hold. However, we do also provide information to parish councils, local people, conservation bodies, and many others through data searches, our licenses, and the kind of various data exchanges we do. So you might see the Devon Wildlife Trust logos, and that's because we're hosted by Devon Wildlife Trust. And we run on a not-for-profit basis, and that means we don't receive any central government funding. We therefore do end up applying charges to access our data, and that's in order to maintain and enable long-term improvements to our data holdings. Now, on top of this, we also have an incredibly skilled field team and technical team who get involved in a wide variety of environmental projects. And this includes things from detailed botanical surveys, technical mapping of environmental data, and involvement in a wide variety of community science projects, which is what we'll be focusing on today. So we also lead on the County Wildlife Site Programme for Devon, and that aims to identify important areas of wildlife in Devon. So that's enough of an overview about the DBRC. And if you do want to know more about our work and projects, there's lots of information on our website that you can look at. Now, the other main project partner is Devon Amphibian and Reptile Group, otherwise known as DRAG, and they're a volunteer-led group focused on reptiles and amphibians within the county of Devon. So they have a variety of core aims, which include identifying and protecting important reptiles and amphibian sites in Devon, supporting partner groups and organisations in conserving those sites, developing a better understanding of species distributions, populations, and potential negative trends, and then to help try and mitigate or reverse those negative trends. They also promote conservation through education and public engagement, and they also collect and submit data to the Devon Biodiversity Records Centre. So they're made up of individuals from a variety of backgrounds, from those with a general interest to real experts in their field. And speaking of experts in their field, it would be remiss of me not to mention Emma, who's here tonight, Alice, who I'm not sure if is here yet, but will be joining us, and also Ellie. And they've played a really key role in shaping this project. And they'll be leading the in-person training sessions, which I'll mention later. And they'll be helping to answer questions tonight later on. So if you are interested in amphibians and reptiles, then definitely sign up to get involved with DRAG. as they really are a fantastic group. Now, this is what you're all here for. So what are the overall aims of the project? Well, one of the main things is to really dedicate some time to increase and update our understanding of great crested newts throughout Devon. So we always have information passed on to us from ecologists, volunteer groups, and members of the public. But by investing this time in great crested newts, we really hope to develop this further. So we plan to update our information on known potential breeding ponds, but also identify new ones if possible. And then we'll use this information to update the existing great crested newt consultation zones, which are used to help inform planning throughout the county. Now, to do all of this, we plan to train and utilise volunteers to conduct two main types of surveys, which I'll go into later. But essentially, there will be eDNA surveys and HSI indexes, or habitat suitability surveys, essentially. And also, we plan to provide opportunities for volunteers and members of the public to gather data on ponds and habitats throughout Devon, both anecdotally and through remote methods. Okay, so now we've had a basic overview of the project and partners. I thought I'd give you a bit of background information about amphibians and reptiles in the UK. So historically, amphibians appeared about 370 million years ago, with reptiles emerging around 320 million years ago. So these organisms can often be mistaken for one another, and that's an easy mistake to make for beginners in the kind of wildlife world. But they do have distinct genetic differences, but also physical characteristics. So amphibians include species such as frogs and newts, and they often start their life in water as tadpoles, and that's before they transform into land-dwelling adults. Now, they're known for their permeable skin, which they can use to respire, and their requirements for moist environments, which play a key role in their life cycle. Now, conversely, reptiles such as snakes and lizards, they have scaly skin, they lay eggs, and are generally better adapted to terrestrial life. However, there are certain species, such as the grass snake, which will use ponds for hunting. Now, both form unique parts of the ecosystems they occupy. However, due to increasing pressures, the current status on both groups is really quite concerning. So amphibians globally face population declines, and this is attributed to things such as habitat loss, pollution, and fungal disease. And this is really having quite severe impacts on those populations. Now, this has led to numerous species being classified as endangered or extinct. And reptiles, they also face these issues from habitat degradation, climate change, and overexploitation. Now, some species are at risk due to limited geographic range, which essentially means that they're running out of habitat. And this causes species to become isolated or even pushed out of their natural habitats. And this is a trend we're seeing more and more with global warming. So this can lead to unsuitable conditions for their life cycles, or even put them in contact with other diseases or predators as they move into new environments. And in some cases, those species pushed out of their natural range may even contribute to the spread of disease in different ecosystems, where the contact with that disease may not have yet occurred. So conservation efforts are really crucial for safeguarding these species. And by protecting their habitats, addressing pollution and raising awareness, we can all sort of contribute to preserving their rich ecological roles in this, really quite fast, ever-changing world. Now, in the UK, we have quite a limited number of native species of both amphibians and reptiles compared to other countries. So for context, there's around 8,000 known amphibians globally, and about 10,000 reptiles. Whereas in the UK, we only have 13 amphibians and reptiles in total, which are native. Now, for those that don't know, native species are those considered to naturally occur within a location. And in this case, that's the UK. Now, there are some non-native species present in the UK, but I won't really mention those today. So we have three snakes. We've got the grass snake, the adder and the smooth snake. We've got 3 lizards, which is the common lizard, the sand lizard, and the slow worm. 2 toads, the common toad and the natterjack toad, and 2 frogs, the common and the northern pool frog. However, the northern pool frog is only actually found in one area of England, and that's after a reintroduction project. And then we have 3 newts, a smooth newt, a palmate newt, and a great crested newt. So all of these can be found in Devon, except for the pool frog and the natterjack toad. So we really are a hotspot here. Now, there are various other amphibians and reptiles lurking in the UK, but all of these have been introduced from external environments. And so those are the non-natives I mentioned earlier. And this has occurred due to accidental translocation or escape from captivity. Now, I won't really go into those, but these non-native species can really have negative impacts on our environment, and that's due to their ability to outcompete our native species, but also spread disease. Now, both amphibians and reptiles are really important predators, particularly within their unique habitats that they occupy, and they contribute massively to controlling insect populations and small mammal populations. However, they also act as prey themselves, and they kind of feed many of our other species in the UK. Now, both are reliant on a mosaic of habitats, and that means they require varied structures and different conditions, with amphibians in particular being reliant on the presence of water bodies throughout the landscape to support their breeding. However, these water bodies can also be transient, meaning they might use temporary ponds and pools in their life cycle. So, on to the star of the show, the great crested newt. Now, the great crested newt is the largest of our 3 native newts in the UK, reaching up to around 17 centimetres in length, with the females often being larger than males. Now, they've been around for approximately 40 million years, and so for context, that's around about the same time that us humans came to the UK, and they can live up to about 10 to 15 years in the wild, which is pretty good going considering the amount of challenges they face in their lifetime. Now, females lay individual eggs on aquatic plants, and the aquatic larval stage, which is essentially tadpoles, will undergo metamorphosis and transform into terrestrial juveniles. Now, great crested newts are primarily nocturnal and feed on invertebrates, and they exhibit a preference for a diverse range of habitats, including grasslands and woodlands. So this does make them quite elusive, and it's therefore not particularly likely that you'll bump into them into your day-to-day life unless you are an ecologist. But importantly, they will also utilize hedgerows, and they use this for moving throughout the landscape. And hedgerows are really important as they provide fantastic connectivity throughout the UK for many species. And it's one of the reasons that we sort of often encourage planting of nice hedgerows and maintaining your hedgerows. Now, in the winter, they will hibernate underground, often amongst tree roots and old walls, and that's where they're sufficiently sheltered from the elements, but it also helps protect them from predators. However, that does make them particularly vulnerable to any human works at this time, which may disrupt those hibernation zones. Now, in terms of identification, the males are quite easily identified during the breeding season as they develop a long wavy crest, and that's observable along its body and tail. And it's also where they get their name. However, this is somewhat unhelpful outside of that time. And otherwise, the main observable features are their warty skin, spotted flanks, and really striking orange belly. Now, they're also noticeably darker and larger than our other newt species within the UK. However, you would have to be familiar with those species to discern them from one another. Now, further information on how to identify great crested newts compared to our other native and non-native species will be provided in those training sessions, which will occur in person. And will be delivered as part of the project. So if you are interested in getting involved in those and finding out more, then please do sign up for them. They will be on our Eventbrite, but as I said, I'll go into more detail about those later. So why are great crested newts important? Now, with many species, you may question why they're important. And if you're attending this session today, then you're probably interested in wildlife and nature in general. And like many of us, you'll believe that nature and wildlife has intrinsic importance, and they don't require justification from us humans. However, I thought I'd highlight a few things that great crested newt does. So, like most of our amphibians, great crested newts play a really key role in keeping invertebrate populations in check. And they feed on species such as midges, which I know are a massive nuisance to many of us outdoorsy people. However, they can also act as prey for many different species, including foxes, badgers, hedgehogs, and birds, which is unfortunate for great crested newts, but great for the wider ecosystem. But due to their ecological requirements, they're also fantastic indicators of the health of an overall ecosystem. And that includes the health of the ponds they utilize, but also the wider connectivity of habitats throughout a landscape. And that's due to their reliance on that variation. And as with many species, they form a really integral part of a complicated web of life which supports the natural world we live in. And like many things, we may even be unaware of some of the roles that they play. And we might not even find out about those if until we lose them, which hopefully we don't do. So what are some of the pressures on great crested newts? So like many species, great crested newts have experienced considerable decline as a result of agricultural intensification and human development. So over the past 50 years, Britain has lost around half of the ponds that were once present in the countryside, and many of them have been built on or have become polluted from a variety of sources, from things such as agriculture, mining, and urbanization. Now, this has contributed to a decline in available breeding sites, but it's also disrupted connectivity throughout the landscape, with things like roads and urban areas often acting as hard barriers. But also things like hedges being removed remove some of those really vital networks. Now, this means that the distribution of great crested newts is often patchy throughout the UK and makes maintenance of sites where they are present all the more important. Now, these trends have also been mirrored throughout much of Central and Northern Europe, and this has led to considerable decline of their range on the continent. But it makes it all the more important for us to conserve them within the UK and really provide a safe haven for them. Now, amphibians globally also face severe threats from fungal and viral diseases, and that's had a major impact on their populations. And now many of these diseases are being noted in the UK, but it's not at the scale but actually the scale of that is not fully understood at the moment, with scientists and volunteers working hard to kind of develop that knowledge and try and understand the impact that that might have. So to help combat these declines in great crested newts, they've become a protected species to help prevent further habitat loss, but also disruption to the species. Now, great crested newts have various designations, with the most important one being their status as a European protected species. Now, although we've left Europe, they still fall under the Conservation of Habitats and Species regulations. And that means it's an offence to deliberately kill, injure, disturb, or capture them. You can't deliberately destroy their eggs or take them, and you're not allowed to damage or destroy their breeding sites or resting places, even when they're not present. Now, you're also not allowed to possess, control, or transport them, dead or alive. Now, they also fall under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981, where it's an offence to intentionally or recklessly disturb great crested newts while they occupy a structure or a place that they use for shelter or protection. And you also can't obstruct access to places of shelter or protection. They're also featured on the list of rare and most threatened species under Section 41 of the Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act. And this means they need to be accounted for as part of planning decisions. And therefore, developers must comply with legal protections of great crested newts. So disturbing or harming great crested newts can result in an unlimited fine or up to 6 months in prison. So to carry out activities that might affect great crested newts or their habitats, individuals or organisations may need a licence, and this could include activities such as development projects that may impact their habitats. But also obtaining a licence typically involves demonstrating that the proposed activities will not be detrimental to the conservation status of the species. And it often requires a submission of a detailed survey and mitigation plan, which is often carried out by professional ecologists. So if you are involved in a project that may affect great crested newts, it is crucial to consult the appropriate environmental authorities, with that being Natural England, and that's to understand and comply with the licensing requirements and conservation measures that they have in place. Now, regulations and procedures may evolve, so it's recommended that you check with the relevant authorities for the latest information. Now, ecologists working with great crested newts will hold a personal license, which enables them to conduct work associated with them. And these licenses are gained by shadowing existing licensed ecologists, displaying an in-depth understanding of their ecology, and being able to conduct surveys to a correct standard. And it's therefore important that you do not disturb or interact with great crested newts unless you are yourself licensed, or by doing so with a licensed individual who can make sure that you are taking the appropriate measures to prevent any harm to them. Now, as mentioned at the beginning, one of our main aims of the project is to update the existing great crested newt conservation zones, consultation zones. But I am aware that not everyone will know what they are. So great crested newt populations in Devon are limited to certain areas, with certain areas having no records submitted at all for large parts of the county. So the great crested newt consultation zones were created in order to help local planning authorities and developers and consultants, ecological consultants that is, identify where planning applications may need to consider the impacts that they would have on the development of great crested newt populations. So these zones are formed by creating 5-kilometre buffers around known great crested newt records. And this is to create a larger consultation zone that marks out the potential great crested newt metapopulations. Now, if you're not familiar with the term metapopulation, this refers to a group of interconnected populations of the same species that interact and exchange individuals over time. Now, these populations are not isolated to individual ponds or location, but they form a network across a landscape where individuals can move between different subpopulations. Now, the concept of a metapopulation helps us to understand the dynamics of local populations, where extinctions occur, and how colonization might occur. And it's also one of the reasons why us ecologists often go on about connectivity and its importance, as it facilitates the movement of species throughout an area. And by facilitating that, you can help prevent things like inbreeding, but also provide opportunities to find alternative habitat and food sources if your original habitat has become disrupted. Now, the map I'm showing is the current consultation zones, and they will be updated if any changes are made as a result of the project. But if you want to have a look at those, you can view them on the DBRC's website. So we know what we want to do with the project in terms of updating information on great crested newts and also those consultation zones, but why do we need to do it? Well, many of the records used to inform the current consultation zones are now considerably older, and they've not undergone repeat surveys. And that means we're not entirely sure if great crested newts are still present in some of those locations. Additionally, over time, new sites with potential are flagged up to us. However, without formal surveys, we're not able to identify whether great crested newts are actually present there or not. So by making a more formal effort to visit these sites, we can identify whether new sites need to be incorporated within those consultation zones. Now, by conducting a project that's focused on resurveying and identifying new ponds, we'll be able to provide the most up-to-date zones, which will then provide the best information for local authorities, who can then incorporate it into planning consultations. But this data can also feed into any conservation efforts that may occur in the future or are currently ongoing. Um, however, by also conducting Devon-wide surveys and gathering as much data as we can also help to further our understanding of great crested newts within Devon, their current status and their distribution. Now, there are four main ways which we plan to use to collect data on great crested newts, and I'll go into detail on those individually. However, this is where you guys come in, as all of our survey methods will involve a core group of volunteers, but also communities and individuals throughout Devon. So first up is we plan to use eDNA surveys, but if you're not familiar with eDNA testing, I thought I'd just explain it to you now. So eDNA, or environmental DNA, refers to genetic material that is naturally released by organisms into their environment. And this acts somewhat like a fingerprint or a barcode, which we can then use to identify species. So if you're into your crime thrillers, then you might think of it a little bit like collecting DNA from a crime scene to identify a suspect. However, unlike crime scene investigations, we just need to analyze water samples from potential habitats that the GCM might be using, and then we can detect whether they're present or not. So why do we want to use eDNA for great crested newts? So as mentioned previously, great crested newts are particularly challenging to observe directly, and that's due to their nocturnal and elusive nature. So eDNA testing offers a non-intrusive method for detecting traces of genetic material, which they leave within their environment, meaning that you don't actually need to observe the species itself. And you can also collect evidence from static habitat, as the pond isn't going to go anywhere unless it is transient. So how does it work? So water samples are collected from ponds, lakes, or other water bodies where great crested newts might reside. And sampling is designed to minimize disturbance to the habitat and the species. And these surveys are conducted by trained individuals. Now, then these samples are sent off for laboratory analysis, and DNA is extracted from collected water samples, and targeted genetic markers specific to great crested newts are then analyzed using quantitative PCR techniques, which is essentially the same as a COVID test. Now, when you want to kind of interpret your results, positive results indicate the presence of great crested newts within the habitat. But the method is really highly sensitive and can detect populations even if the amount of DNA is quite low in concentration. So what are some of the benefits of this? Well, the first one is sensitivity. eDNA testing can detect species presence even in the absence of direct observation. It's efficient, so it's a time-effective and non-intrusive method compared to traditional survey techniques. And it also has conservation benefits. So it enables effective monitoring for conservation and helps with management of sites. So this scientific approach to eDNA testing provides really valuable insights into great crested newt populations without actually causing much disruption to their natural habitats. Now, it is possible to get false negatives with this form of testing, and it can be limited by adverse weather, where samples might get mixed in the pond and sediment is brought up, or simply through incorrect sampling methods. However, if it is done properly, it can be an incredibly useful tool in uncovering whether great crested newts are present or not. And this is why we want to really have those formal training sessions to train volunteers so they know exactly what they're doing and have the confidence to do so with the help from licensed GCN ecologists. And there will be links to that on our Eventbrite page. So the other thing we plan to do is habitat suitability surveys. So this is using something called the Habitat Suitability Index. And this is a survey which is designed to identify whether a pond is suitable or not for supporting great crested newts. And it essentially focuses on 10 factors or so to determine an overall score. And these are based off of things such as the geographic location. So that's based off of our current understanding of great crested newts and their current range, and whether the kind of ponds available are known to contain great crested newts. The pond area, so this assesses the size of the pond at its highest level, so when it's got the most water there. However, you do tend to exclude flooding events. And typically, the larger the pond, the better. The permanence of the pond, so this tends to be determined from local knowledge, so whether a pond never dries up, whether it kind of might be transient in nature. But yeah, that's basically the main thing for that. Water quality, so this is a somewhat subjective assessment, but it's typically based off of invertebrate diversity, with the more diverse a community of invertebrates being indicative of better water quality. We then look at the shade, so optimal shade is considered between 0 to 60% of the shoreline, with suitability dropping as this increases from that point. You then look at predation, so whether there's waterfowl or fish present, as these can impact negatively on great crested newts. And we would also look at the pond count within the area. So are there other ponds locally? Are they well connected? And you might want to look at things like the terrestrial habitat as well. So whether they have good foraging area, whether there's kind of, good shelter if they need it. And then also we'll look at macrophytes, which are essentially large aquatic plants. Now we plan to run multiple training sessions for volunteers to be able to learn how to do this. And yeah, we'll hope that you sign up for this. So also we want to provide opportunities for people that can't get out in the field, as we appreciate that not everyone can. But it is possible to gather some really useful information on suitable ponds remotely. But we will also need some help in managing the data that we collect. So firstly, we would like to develop our understanding of the distribution of ponds throughout Devon, which you can do by analysing existing aerial imagery. And it's also possible to rule out certain ponds based off of this. For example, a pond may no longer exist where it was previously marked, and you can see that it's not filling up seasonally. Then, yeah, we can use this information to plan future work, and that will not be possible without a good number of people doing so. But also one of the really useful things with volunteers and communities is identifying landowners, as this can be really difficult. But community knowledge can be a really valuable thing when making contacts and organising access to sites. And additionally, we'll be generating lots of data and records through the project, and this will all need careful management. And therefore, if you really are a whiz with managing databases and things, and please do get in touch. So finally, even if you can't get involved with any of the things I've mentioned so far, you can always submit anecdotal records to Devon Biodiversity Records Centre. Now, this is if you come across amphibians or reptiles, but please don't go out searching for great crested newts deliberately. So you can also submit records for things such as plants, birds, and insects. And incidental records actually make up a vital part of our database. So really, the more records, the better. And you can help us to fill in gaps in Devon where we don't really hold as much data on species. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that you don't necessarily have to focus on rare things. There's actually common species are often quite under-recorded, as people tend to look past them. We're also developing a tool which is also live at the moment to allow you to record habitats and pass on any information about them, called HabMapper. And we're hoping that this will provide more detail on Devon's really amazing landscape. Now, it really is pretty basic at the moment, but we do want to kind of continually update that. And this can all be found on the websites linked above. But we'll also send up a follow-up email to tonight's session covering where you can find it. However, I will say again, please don't deliberately go looking for great crested newts, as although your intentions might be good, without training and appropriate consideration that you'll need to take during those sessions. But for now, here's a sort of general overview. So multiple diseases present in the UK and found kind of in our native populations of amphibians, but also captive amphibian collections. So these diseases have caused amphibian declines around the world and are largely transported by humans. And one of the main roots of that is the pet trade. Now, you're unable to see them by eye in soil or water, so cleaning off all organic material from footwear and survey equipment before and after visits to any ponds is really important. And to upkeep biosecurity and protect great crested newts, please do not deliberately disturb ponds or go searching for great crested newts unless you are a part of an official survey. And this therefore limits the risk of spreading disease and causing unintentional harm to great crested newts and other populations. So volunteers surveyors will be trained to conduct surveys appropriately and to make appropriate biosecurity measures and follow the correct protocols. Now, it's also worth mentioning that even if you're not involved in surveys, cleaning down boots and other recreational equipment, such as paddle boards, if you're moving between water bodies, can be incredibly useful to prevent the spread of disease, but also the spread of invasive species between different habitats and locations. So finally, the most important bit, how to get involved. So if you are interested in getting involved, then please see Eventbrite links that we will send through and get live. And those are for those in-person training events. And if you do want to get involved in any of the remote data collection side of things, then please do email me or someone else on the team, and we can provide you with some more detail and information. So the events below are all designed to go into much more detail on the ecology and survey methods that I have done tonight. And that's so volunteers are fully prepared to be able to conduct the surveys. And we've tried to spread out these training sessions so that you can all sort of have an opportunity to attend them. Now, I won't read them out as you can see them on the screen. But please note that these events will have limited spaces, and we are going to be really reliant on individuals and communities to actually conduct the surveys so this project can work. So please, if you aren't able to commit to conducting surveys, then don't sign up for them. But if you've got the time, then yeah, definitely get involved. And then once you've attended a training session, we'll then begin to assign sites and tasks to volunteers. And this will include ponds to survey, which will aim to make local to the area that you're based in. And we appreciate that you will be dedicating your personal time to the project, and we'll be able to reimburse mileage covered to access ponds, but also provide the necessary equipment, such as sort of disinfectant and biosecurity tools to conduct the surveys. So the success of the project really is reliant on help from communities and individuals. So if you do feel that you're able to get involved, then please do. Right. Well, hopefully I've covered everything you need to know about the project and the ways in which you can get involved. But I'm sure you will have questions, and now is the time to ask. Also, if we aren't able to cover your questions during this session, or if you think of something later on, then please do email me, and I'll do my best to answer it or pass you on to someone else in the team. Now, I will do my best to answer your questions, but luckily we've also got Emma and Ellie, who are much more well-versed in great crested newts than me, who can help out. So yeah, if Emma and Ellie want to say hi, then that'd be great.
Everyone, my name's Emma Scotney and I'm a local ecologist in Devon. I work pretty much all over the southwest and have been doing stuff with great crested newts for probably a good couple of years. It's probably longer than I think. So yeah, I got involved in the project as a class license holder so that we can help train volunteers to make sure that we're following the licensing rules for disturbance and things that Jack talked about, so that we are covered in that sense and that we can engage people with great crested newts and ponds whilst being well within the law.
Hi, I'm Ellie Knott. I work at the Devon Biodiversity Records Centre with Jack. I've been involved with DBRC for the past 24 years. Also been involved with drag, and yes, I'm at the moment I'm busy contacting lots of landowners and people who've sent in great crested newt records saying, can we come and survey your pond, please? So hopefully we'll get lots of ponds we can survey. I think Alice is going to say hi as well. Alice, if you can stick your camera on and say hello, that would be good.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Fab. Sorry, I can't put my camera on. But I'm Alice. I'm the amphibian surveyor person for DRAG. Currently doing a PhD on common frogs and worked with DRAG for a long time, also crag for a long time, and worked with newts throughout my undergraduate and great cresteds on and off for years. So a bit of an amphibian nut.
Right. So have there been any questions in the chat so far that you guys have picked up?
Only one question which came to me directly was somebody asking if the other two newt species, the smooth newt and palmate newt, were protected. They've got a little bit of protection under the Wildlife and Countryside Act in that it's illegal to sell them, but they're not fully protected like great crested newts. So at the moment, no, we haven't had any questions. So you've obviously covered everything.
Oh, yeah,
I've got one from Amy Roberts that says, what does DRAG stand for? So DRAG, Amy, is the Devon Reptile and Amphibian Group. So it's a volunteer-based group that covers Devon and specialises in amphibians and reptiles. And that's what Alice was referring to when she said crag. That's the Cornwall version of the same group.
So I've had a few come through via direct message. So one of them is from Stephen, which is it correct that great crested newts are not as rare as it was once thought they were when they were given protection? So yeah, if any of you guys know that.
They're certainly quite rare down here. In Devon, they're on the edge of their range in the UK. They are much more widespread in the southeast. They have gone quite a decline in Europe and Britain. So they are, they're not, even though they're in some areas there might be quite a few of them. They do, they are under threat still. So I'm just frantically looking up stuff at the moment.
That's all right, Ellie, I can allude to that. So
Yep,
in the late 20th century, especially after things like the war, obviously industrialization increased in farming practices, so we could provide our own food. We lost a lot of their countryside ponds. So that is why they sort of afforded the protections. There were these big declines. Now, a lot of those ponds are not back, but we have had ponds, say, in gardens and in other places. So although I think they're not as sort of severely declining as they were, there was a big decline. That's why the protections came into place. And them still being protected now allows both them and their habitats to be protected, so that hopefully there won't be another big decline. So I think it's still valid. The IUCN does sort of do checks and see that things are still threatened to keep their protections. So yeah, they're not declining as much as they were, but it's still very nice that they're afforded those legal protections.
Yeah, but Britain is actually a stronghold for great crested newts compared to the continent. We've got quite a good population. Again, in Europe, they've been under the same pressures as here. So ponds have disappeared, and a lot of their habitat's been built upon. Somebody's just asked, why are they rarer in the southwest? I'm not quite sure. I think it's partly something to answer that? Yes, if you can, that's good.
Yeah. So southwest in particular, you might notice on those maps there's a nice big gap in the middle. That's where Dartmoor National Park is, same as towards the top, that's where Exmoor is. So out of all of our newts, just as with the smooths, they don't tolerate low pH very well. They prefer sort of higher pHs. So on Dartmoor, you can get right down to, I think I recorded a palmate newt at 3.7 pH. So our palmate newts love these low pH areas, and that's why they're really popular all across Devon. The smooth newts are in sort of these little clusters, and great crested newts are in those clusters as well. And if you look at where they are on that consultation zone, a lot of them are like just off the moor. So just as you come off that big granite bailiff, that big bedrock of granite, the pH level changes, and supposedly that makes it a little bit more favourable for them.
Yeah, so in a lot of the great crested newts are in East Devon and Teignbridge, and that's where we've got the more sort of calcareous grasslands, so sort of limestone and stuff. So yeah, the pH is not as low as on the more acid soils on Dartmoor.
So I've had a few questions, and it's been brought to our attention that there's no option to direct message all of the chat. People are finding that's why we're getting personal messages.
Okay.
Jack, if you can go back to the slide that had all of our future events on it, I have a message here that says the training sessions all have different titles. Do we need to attend multiple sessions to cover eDNA and HSI? So this is the introduction session, and following on from this, there'll be a HSI session, the Habitat Suitability Index assessment, and there'll also be an eDNA session. So it really depends on your level of commitment and what method you might prefer. If you're looking to get involved in the project, we would say attend a HSI session, because that's one form of surveying ponds, and then come along to the eDNA session as well if you can. The HSI sessions, there's 3 of them, because we want to try and target them around the region. So we're kind of doing one in mid Devon, one in north, and one towards the east, so that we can try and target those known consultation zones and give people the option to attend events locally. So yeah, if you can, if you're really interested, I would suggest going to a HSI and the one eDNA session there.
Great. I've got a few questions which have come through directly. I've updated the chat now, so you should be able to post in there. But one that kind of, well, 2 questions. So if ecologists already have experience in the surveys, do they need to come to the training events? And also, if there are ecologists with licenses already, can they get involved with the surveys?
Yes. So if you all have training in HSI and eDNA, you're more than welcome to kind of get involved in the project without attending the training sessions. We can designate you ponds and stuff further down the line, and you can go out and do those. That's fine. If you have a Great Crested Newt class license, you're able to do all of these surveys without the training, as long as you have had previous training. We're trying to stick to the methods, the 2 methods that we've gone through, the HSI and the eDNA, because that's the most efficient way for us to get the data we want back, which is the presence of Great Crested Newts. Doing your traditional methods, such as bottle trapping and torching, could take quite a few trips to confirm that there's Great Crested Newts present, and we have to think of the ponds that are in private land, and we want to make as minimal impact on our landowners as possible. So just visiting once to take DNA is much better for them than someone visiting during the night a couple of times during the season to get that data. So yeah, even if you have a class license, we would like for the majority to be done by eDNA. There might be some cases on public accessible land, maybe, that we would do a group survey or a survey using the traditional methods.
Right.
But yeah, just get in contact with us, if you've got a license or you've got experience in surveys, and then we can sort out where it might be useful for you to survey and what would be most helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Will there be any additional surveys to determine population size at all? So no, I don't believe we have any plan for that currently. From Will, are there any plans to update Great Crested Newt guidance for Devon LPAs or developers following the project?
Depends on what we find.
I think that the guidance that's given with the Great Crested consultation zones, I think now you just get referred to the Natural England standing advice. But we will use the information to update those consultation zones. They, at the moment, they're 5-kilometre buffers around known great crested, or all great crested newt records. But obviously some of those records are very, very old. Some of them are from the 1980s. And so if we find that the great crested newts aren't present there any longer, then we would have to change those consultation zones. Yeah, but that will be something we'll be doing after the survey, once we've got a bit more information. Oh, Carly's asked what time of the day will the sessions be? So the ones, the HSI ones are all on Wednesdays. They're in the afternoon, from 3:30, I think we said 3:30 to 6:30.
4 till 6:30, I think. Yeah.
And then the eDNA one on Saturday, 16th of March, that's all day, so starting 10:30, I think.
I've got another one here that says, will volunteers be able to survey ponds and search for great crested newts if we don't have a personal license or as an accredited agent? So no is the simple answer. We've deliberately chosen these methods so that we don't have to accredit people or train people for a great crested newt license. This training won't get you a reference or a great crested newt license, but it will aid in your knowledge and you can add it to an experience log. So the methods that we're teaching and that we'll be using for this project don't require a license, and that's why we've chosen them, so everyone can get involved.
And Darren has asked, how long should each survey take? And that partly depends on how big the pond is, isn't it? And how easy it is to get to.
How many ponds are within sort of a close range as well?
But for eDNA, you're taking half a dozen water samples, I think.
Yeah.
So you have to take them from all around the edge of the pond. So yeah, it might take half an hour to do it, or if it's a large pond, it might take longer than that. Oh, Johan has asked, how reliable is eDNA analysis? Could it detect presence from years ago? No, it's only sort of the last month or last couple of weeks, so it is quite recent. Heather's asked, is it possible to do just the online eDNA training if you can't do the Saturday 16th? Emma, you can answer that one.
Sorry, what was the question?
Can you just do the online eDNA session? That's just a catch up, isn't it? If somebody can't.
Yeah, that's just an hour catch up to support the people who attended the session if they have any questions, because it's quite a lot to go through. So it's just kind of a support session for anyone who's attended eDNA or HSI training. It's not a formal training session, it's just a catch up, yeah.
But we are going to be asking people to survey in pairs. So I guess if you can't come to the training session, you can come out with someone who's already done that.
Sure.
And also at the session on Saturday, we're going to be handing out things like eDNA kits and disinfectant and gloves and stuff like that. So yeah, you'd need to attend there to get your eDNA kits and gloves and things.
The final question that I've got is, are you surveying all of the areas in Devon or just the areas that you believe they are? So Ellie, do you want to explain how we've prioritised the Devon ponds?
Well, basically we have 60 eDNA kits, so we can't survey every single pond in Devon. We're prioritising ponds and areas where we've got records, especially old records, so we'd like to be able to go back to those sites and try and resurvey and check that the great crested newts are present. So where we've got very, very recent records, for example, if on the map of consultation zones, you'll see there's a site right up in North Devon, which is Braunton Burrows, and somebody did a survey there in 2021 and mapped all the ponds that have great crested newts, so we don't need to survey that again. So we are targeting the older records. Obviously, most of these ponds are in private land. So they're in people's gardens or on people's farms. So it does depend on whether we can actually find the landowners and they actually give permission. So there might be some sites we really want to survey, but the landowner says no, or we just can't work out who owns the land. So we're certainly not going to be going trespassing to survey great crested newts. Johann has asked, where in North Devon will the training be? So this is the habitat suitability index training that's going to be at Wimblewall Lakes, which is Southwest Lakes Trust site, which is, can you explain where it is, Emma? I can't remember where it is now.
So it's actually just on the border of Somerset. It's technically not in Devon. It's near, or we can send out the location and the postcodes, but it's just on the Somerset border. We chose that site because it's already got a pond, and it's nice to do the training, and there's a field element to our training where we'll go out and practice all of this stuff. So it worked quite nicely that they have an event and a event hire and a pond. So yeah, it's just over the border, but it's as close as we can get to North Devon.
Right. Well, is that everyone's questions? I can't really
we've just got one.
Oh.
Elle says, I'd love to serve my area, which is sensitive and under great threat from development. Eels have been known over the last century, and a resident sent a photo a couple of days ago, which our wildlife wardens thought might be a female GCN. Well, can you send that photo in to us and we can tell you?
Yeah.
I'll stick my email address, reply and put my email address in.
Yeah, I feel I should add to that. Anybody that has any suspected GCNs, you can either send them straight to Ellie, which is sending the email in now, or upload them to Record Pool, which is the thing that DRAG uses. And all of the records that go to there actually go to Ellie in time. So there's a direct or a slightly indirect, but they can all go up there.
Yeah, so I've just put my email address in meeting group chat. So hopefully everybody's got all the links that I was sticking in that earlier on, but we'll just email everybody and send the links out anyway.
Yeah, I will try and send round a follow-up email tomorrow with any of the links on the topics discussed today.
Oh, Jack, do you want to put your email address back on the screen so people can note it down?
There we go. Yeah, so if you want to send through any questions to me or Ellie, then feel free. But if that's it, unless anyone has any more questions, get them in the next minute or so. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone attending tonight. It's been really good to have you here. Just from Darren quickly, he's got a question in. How do we sign up? So it will be on the Eventbrite page. So are the training sessions live yet? Not yet.
Not yet, but we can, when we do the email to all the people that have attended tonight, we can put links to when they're live.
Yeah.
People can access it.
Brilliant. Yeah, so that will be the way to sign up. But if not, if you don't kind of manage to come across the email, if it misses you for whatever reason, then just send me an email and I can send through the details to you. Great. Well, as I said, thank you very much for tonight, everyone. It's been really great having you here, and hopefully I'll be able to see you out surveying. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Jack.
Bye.